I don't know. Did you see anything with the intro? No, she says no. Yeah.
Spin it again.
It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena.
You know what? I've heard people call, and I kind of like it, the era that we're in, the post-truth kind of era.
And lately, there's been a lot of coverage in the real news about the growing and booming business of creating fake news.
Well, I don't know. Maybe he was watching CNN fake news. What do you think?
You are fake news.
Sir,
go ahead.
Let us return to the fight. This battle is far from over.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Real News in the Morning. My name is Mr. Henry. We are back at it, doing it again. I got my same dynamics here, my same microphone mechanics, all the ways you got to speak around the microphone, and then you get serious with it right here, Shine. This is where you get some serious.
We have a really funny story for the Real News audience.
Yeah, we got a funny story.
We have a funny story. So, sorry we're late. We really apologize for that. We literally did a whole intro in like 5 minutes of the show.
It was good.
To
though.
nobody.
It was really good.
To nobody. We thought we were live, and we were not live. All of a sudden, thank goodness for Grant's wife. She's like, because she can hear him doing the show to nobody in the living room.
Which is usually the case.
And she was watching on her phone, and she's like, I hear you doing the show, but I don't see you doing the show. And he's like, Shine, are we live? I'm like, yeah, we're told. Oh, we're not live. So thank you for your patience. Thank you for being on the show this morning. Grant, how are you doing today?
Hey, doing well, buddy. Doing well. By the way, we did a show for 5 solid minutes, an intro and everything, and it was the best 5-minute show that has ever been produced in the history of man. I'm pretty sure.
It's the secret show. It's the show that was the most amazing show you'll never see. You can only just imagine how.
And there's
great
no way
it
to
was.
call us on that either, Shine, because there's no documented record of
Only
it.
your wife
So
knows
it could
the
have
truth.
been.
how good it was. It's amazing.
That Tenacious D song, the best song ever written, but it's just a tribute to the best song that was ever written. Because that song is not technically the best song. It was just a tribute to the best song that was actually best ever written. By the way, my name is Mr. Henry. David Shine Thompson sitting over there. Buddy, I think we got an awesome thing. Let's dive right into the greatest audience in the nation appreciation segment here. You know how this thing goes, rolls off the tongue now at this point. Let us know what you're thankful for, what you need help with, prayer concerns, praise, shout out, encouragement, anything else you want to do right now. Without divulging too much of what's going on here, I do want to give a shout out. Some praise and all this in a prayer request, all wrapped up into one here. Member of our community reached out to us yesterday, and just family coming together is all you really need to know. But family coming together, just fantastic stuff we're hearing from members of our community about building bonds, growing, progressing, all that stuff. And make sure you keep that phrase in your head: family coming together, easy transition. If you believe in that kind of stuff, it seriously would help this person out. Seriously would help our community out as well. As some really cool stuff comes up, and just making sure everything is settling right. And it's just take my word for it. Take Mr. Henry's word for it. Really awesome stuff is happening with our community that we're building here.
Yeah, I mean, we had people reach out. We've had people reach out to us, say, think about, I have this thing going on in my life. Just keep me on your mind. And we appreciate people doing that. We are here for you. We want to, I've had to reach out to people during this weird time of sitting in my house for 4 weeks and kind of like unload, get stuff off my chest or vent. Feel free to send us a message anytime. There's nothing weird. There's no wrong questions. There's no wrong comments. We're here for you, and we appreciate you all very much.
And so obviously great stuff we're hearing from one member of our community. Prayer requests coming out for that as well. Anything that you have, like I said, hit us up, personal comments here in the Facebook chat. Hit us up for our personal messages on Real News Radio, or either myself personally or Shine personally. By the way, I want to make a comment too. Judy said in Facebook, I think for the last second ago, where you be with the letter B. I don't know why. That was one of the funniest things I've read all morning long. I think I can just see Judy saying "where you be" in a stance like that. And it was my favorite thing I've read. Where you be, right?
Hey, we're really sorry for being late, everybody.
I love that thing, man.
But we have a great show planned for you today. Grant, this is the greatest audience in the nation appreciation segment here. We're going to be enriching this segment on Thursday with a special interview. I don't want to say any more than that, but just look forward to Thursday's show. We'll be letting you know, like we always do, ways people are innovating, ways people are like trying to help their community, and then like ideas about ways people are trying to like innovate and help the community. Those are the main things. And I feel like moving forward, this kind of gets into a little newsiness, but this is a news show, so that's why we do this segment. We're going to have to, moving forward, we're going to all have to innovate into this new normal because we need to still make money. We still need to be able to have social institutions. We need to push we need to have cultural institutions, social institutions, and economic institutions that are as little affected by this change as possible. And that's going to take some innovation, and we're going to talk to people, business owners. I want to talk to church leaders. I want to talk to anybody who's having to run institutions with this new normal, and we'll start that on Thursday. So make sure you check that out. It'll be right at the top of the show. But Grant, I've been talking too long. Tell us about what's going on in the world.
By the way, I want to say too, Teresa just said on Facebook she has to get tested to have her hair done on Monday. Good luck with everything there. I don't know, you got to get tested, but I guess by some salons, have your hair done on Monday. We'll definitely keep that in the concerns. Judy said better than where you at. That is very true, right? The where you at frustrates people in my life almost as much as anything else. If they have these little Piccadilly issues, the where you at. Don't say where you at. That's almost as bad. Where you be is arguably as good, if not even better than where you at. That's for sure. Final thing in the Greatest Science in the Nation appreciation segment right now is what I'm about to show on my screen. I think this company is actually follows the Real News page. I'm not sure of that, but I actually tagged them in the show just in case today. There's an awesome company out by your way, I'm pretty sure, Shine, AA Air Company. Check out what they're doing. I'll share this on the screen here in just a second. Let me just read through here. So this is the thing they put on their Facebook account yesterday. AA Air Company, quote, because air conditioning and heating are essential needs, we are still opening, operating, and taking care of our clients while using extra precautions. Cool, right? Many local businesses are closed and struggling due to social distancing and stay-at-home orders. They need our help. Awesome. How are you going to help them? What do they need our help with? Get this, buddy. All right. AA Air Company, out your way, is doing this. We're talking about businesses innovating. We're talking about helping out local communities, new innovative ways to help other businesses as well. Listen to this. We're going to redirect marketing funds to support them where we can. This is an opportunity for you to help too. Purchase a gift card, e-card, or certificate for your favorite restaurant, hair salon, or stylist, massage therapist, pet groomer, fitness professional, or nail salon. Email us a picture of the gift card and receipt along with your contact information too, and then they provide their information. All this is linked in the show notes this morning, by the way, too. Provide your information to info@aa-airco.com. Send in by April 30th, and they will purchase a matching gift card up to $50 from the same location and send it to you, limited one per household. Bro, I actually, our one of our great producers here that's been with us since the very beginning, Richard Esparza, he actually sent us this information yesterday. I thought, that is exactly what I'm talking about, man. That is exactly the stuff that I like to see, the stuff that we talk about. Here it is on your screen right now. AA Air Company. Send them a photo of the gift card that you purchased from any of the things I just listed a second ago, whether it's a pet grooming or nail salon or anything else. They will actually match a contribution up to $50, send you another gift card back so you can go continue to, spend money at that business, man. Cool idea, right? I thought that was really,
really cool. And this is exactly what we're talking about. And obviously, a little disclaimer, nobody's paying us to show you this.
Thank you. Yeah.
So this is not an advertisement. This is news. It's news to me anyway, and news I want to hear how people are figuring out how to navigate this different experience, this different shared experience we're all having. And I think this is a way to establish relationships with customers, give them a reward for establishing that relationship. You get positive association with the product and the service. It's all very good. These are all things that are important. This greases the wheels of commerce, and I love it. And if the people who own this company, if you watch the show, if you do follow Real News, send us a message. I'd be happy to have you on the air with us and talk about. And if you have a business or know anyone that has a business and is doing stuff like this, things where there's mutual benefit with the customer, trying to keep people, because man, we're going to be talking about this more and more because the economics of what's going on is going to quickly overshadow a lot of what is talked about. I mean, the health thing's going to be around for a while and it'll keep popping up, but the economic part is super important. I mean, people are going to be scared to spend their money because they don't know what's going to happen in the future. People are going to be spending less money because they just don't have the habit of going out as much. And we need people to spend money. We need money to flow. And that's the way it gets to people who need it. And that's a way to do it. I really like that. And I want to talk to other business owners who are doing that. So if you know anybody who's being innovative like that, send us a message to Real News. We'll spotlight them or maybe even get them on the air to talk about it.
And I'm actually wondering, man, let's make a transition into what's going on with the real news today. All right. So in the vein of what we were just talking about a second ago of the economy reopening, you see that as the headline of the show notes this morning. Obviously, Tennessee starts to reopen businesses. And you saw this yesterday. I believe some restaurants even were opening at about 50% capacity. I'd like to know from anybody in the comment section, did you go out? Did you experience? What did you experience? What were your experiences? Did you go to a restaurant or anything else? And as unfortunate as this sounds, it seems to be that we're reopening it. Like, and I say unfortunate as it sounds, because it's an ability right now for, say, media to potentially capitalize on this narrative that's been going across that some states are opening too soon. Georgia in particular, Tennessee, and a few other places. You see from the Hill, the headline I have linked in the show notes this morning, that Tennessee had its highest one-day jump in coronavirus cases ahead of a restaurant reopening. Some of the numbers I'll go through here in a second, but I did actually just want to get a perspective from a local source here in Franklin, where myself and my wife are. Is that grammatically correct? Probably not. Where it doesn't matter. Myself and I, whatever.
My wife and myself, I think, is the appropriate way to say it.
Maybe it's my wife and I. Is it my wife and I, guys? We'll see. We'll ask the grammar expert.
Let's go to the judges.
Let's go to the judges.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Here it is from Franklin. A little bit of reporting here. Let me know what you experienced in your town yesterday, and we'll get into some numbers here in just a second.
And to reopen in Tennessee, we're helping you navigate the process and share stories of how businesses are managing. It's our new series called The Rebound. News Channel 5's Alexander Cohen visited Puckett's Grocery and Restaurant down in Franklin.
Puckett's great food, by the way. Never been to Puckett's.
Puckett's Grocery and Restaurant was filled with loyal customers like Daryl Mason today. They were ready to eat, get out of COVID-19 quarantine, and help the economy get back on track.
I've been checked. I don't have it. I'm not a carrier. And it seems like some of the numbers are plateauing and some areas even going down. So, and this place, as you can smell, it smells really clean in here.
Owner Andy Marshall says his restaurant
quickly, I mean, I'll play the rest of this clip here for you, Sam. But quickly, I hopefully presume that this is a little bit of what the experience might look like, and it's going to be slightly jarring for some people, I think, as they re-enter restaurants or re-enter just, I don't know, what we hope to be a state of normalcy,
or just see
forward.
Other people who aren't your family. You know, that might be jarring.
That's true.
Maybe driving in a car might be jarring. I mean, I don't know. Everybody's been doing everything so different. I wonder I didn't go to a restaurant last night, but now, like, you played that clip, I was fantasizing about sitting at a table with people that I'm friends with. That's what I was. That made me want to go out. I'm gonna do it. Maybe today.
Well, but you see the experience that people might end up having. So obviously, I think, I don't know, but I would presume that they're taking this at least at some point where normally at this particular time that they're shooting these frames, that restaurant would be completely packed. Right. But because of the 50%, occupancy restrictions going on right now, this is a little bit of what I think you might see. You would see gaps in between tables like this. Up there in the top left in the corner, you can see one of the waitress wearing full on blue gloves and the face mask and everything. And again, I think that might be a little bit socially jarring for some people to enter, but that's going to be what people are going to expect. And frankly, I think there's a lot of people that we keep talking about this tradable commodity of trust. I think there's going to be a lot of people that would be much more willing, much more likely to go into a restaurant, seeing that in the top left-hand corner of your screen, seeing that from the waitresses cleaning abundantly, everything, every single surface you might touch. As weird as it might look to us, they'd be far more likely to go sit in a restaurant like that because of the trust that it gives to someone than some other restaurant, right?
Yeah, it's like virtue signaling over something that actually matters, like your health and safety, right? Instead of things that you can't relate to and are confused by. But I don't know, like this, when he said that you can smell it. I bet everyone, think about the subtle psychological stuff, Grant. I bet I could make a fortune selling air fresheners that make a room smell slightly like bleach. You know what I mean? I bet I could make a fortune wouldn't you feel better if you don't want it to smell like Bath and Body Works when you walk into a place, right? You want it to smell like disinfectants, pine sol, bleach, whatever, something that reminds you of clean. And I bet that kind of smell is being worked on and captured at at the smell factory, wherever they build that stuff. But that's subtle little psychological things like that. The smell, the look, telling. Like you said, up there in the left-hand corner of your screen, you can see the waitress wearing the gloves, wearing the mask. Like, some of that stuff, it doesn't matter if it's practical or not.
Right.
It just
right.
makes you feel better.
Let me play the rest of this here. There's one other clip, one part I wanted to get to here.
Group is opening several of their establishments this week.
We're just glad to be back. This is more than just us coming back as a business. This is us getting employees back to work. We've had in the A. Marshall Hospitality over 400 employees that have been temporarily laid off.
To stay safe, employees are wearing masks, sanitizing. They're keeping the restaurant at half capacity, and the bar is closed. Next door at Meridy's Bread Basket.
All right, so they go into talks about some other, well-known Franklin spots here that would make sense to a few people to watch the show, but not most. But again, 400 employees, buddy. Just and Puckett's, like a lot of people know Puckett's in Nashville. Okay, it's a staple around here. In Nashville area, Franklin, all the place. They have a couple locations everywhere. But man, I'm telling you, 400 employees at Puckett's alone, that's major. That is absolutely major. That's a major hit to the economy that it was before. It's a major indicator of the fact that Nashville in particular is a service-driven economy, right? And some of these people getting back to work. And that's why, again, I bring up that portion from the show notes this morning as to the Hill reporting Tennessee has its highest one-day jump in coronavirus cases ahead of the restaurant reopening. Now, before we get to some other portions of the show here, I just want to express one more time, look, y'all, just be careful. All right. I don't think I need to say this, but be safe. Take your own precautions. If you think you're more susceptible to this than others, given age or maybe underlying conditions, then take precautions that others may not. All right. And at the same time, if you don't have to leave because of your job, maybe I would suggest that you don't have to. But Tennessee is a state that's going to allow us to try and figure out how to do this on our own. Tennessee and Georgia and a few others are states that are going to allow us to be able to figure out how to go back out and reopen and do all these things in a way that, I don't know, possibly we'd like to do so that businesses can survive. Just make the right decisions so that shine. We were actually talking yesterday when you were watching the governor's address as of yesterday, and he was saying something to the effect of like, well, we hope we won't have to shut anything down again, but, not all options are on the table or something to that extent. Was that right? Where he's basically saying, like, look, if we reach hospital capacity again, I don't know, we might have to start having this conversation again. And I don't think we're there yet, obviously. I'm going off this headline from the Hill that everyone can see in the show notes saying that we had the highest one-day jump coronavirus cases the day before we reopen restaurants. You know what I'm saying?
So I don't know if this was coordinated or not, but I watched several press conferences yesterday, including Georgia's, including Tennessee's, and including the White House. And every single one of those press conferences included a question from someone of how bad would it need to be, and this is me paraphrasing because it was different in different times, obviously, but how bad would it need to be in order to add more restrictions in? How bad would it need to be? And basically everyone's answer was, we're looking at data and public safety is number one and blah, 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 blah. But where it's important to us, because I think it's 90% of our viewers and listeners and whatever are here on Real News are from the state of Tennessee. So in Tennessee, the governor said all options are on the table. Nothing's off the table, which would include restricting things more after they relax. So I sent that to Grant, that quote. I said, quote of the day is nothing's off the table. So that I think that's part of what I was saying earlier is we have to figure out a way to do things safely. We have to, because we have to get people making money again. Money's got to flow from me to you so that we can purchase goods and provide value to the culture and to the people. And we have to do that safely. We got to figure out ways to do it. We just have to. Because if we don't, there will be restrictions again because there'll be too much pressure. And they're already starting the pressure campaign. If there's another jump, if there's a spike in a certain county, Governor Lee's going to get an earful about it.
Oh, yeah.
That's why it's really important that you keep putting, I don't want to call it pressure, but we actually have a petition you can send to the governor that says, we want to reopen safely. Thank you for reopening. I'm paraphrasing a little bit once again, but we want to keep sending those to him. If you haven't, I think it's usually in our description of our video, but if not, it'll be on the Facebook page. But at any given time, if things got bad and our governor got pressure, things could close back up again. And that's unfortunate.
If you want to know, what to expect, what it's going to look like when you go out there, that's why I included that link to what you'll see is called the Tennessee Pledge. That is the entire booklet, pamphlet, whatever you want to call it. I think it's about a 10, 15-page document. Don't quote me on that. It's called Here's the Tennessee Pledge. Click on that. It goes directly to the Governor Lee's plan to help Tennesseans return to work in a safe environment, restore their livelihoods, and reboot our state economy. I mean, it's way too much to get into at this particular moment. But if you want to reference that back, I don't know, just keep that in mind. The Hill article there at the top actually lends some numbers to what we're talking about here with the highest jump in the state so far right before we reopen. Just be safe, man. That's all I wanted to use that segment for. Sean, being that we're at the bottom of the hour here, let me make a hard transition into one of the more interesting topics that I don't know, man. I don't want to say like that, Dara, that I say that we've ever talked about in real news. We talk about some interesting stuff here, but Sean actually brought this to my attention yesterday, along with one of our people that watch the show all the time. Is going to be Daniel Blanchett. Just he's big in the community out in Knoxville area as well. Just works with a lot of libertarian folks out there. Food shortages, bro. In particular, meat shortages. All right. I'm sure everyone has heard stories about this, and on the surface, it may not seem like, I don't know, the most interesting topic, but it is supremely interesting the more you get involved with it, all right? It's supremely interesting, not just for the shock value behind it. And I think that's why people have had a tendency to stay away from some of these stories. When you hear about meat shortages and food shortages coming on, you're thinking, man, that's just yet another version of media propaganda. Dude, what it really is, it's a story of inherent restrictions, of inherent government restrictions, creating a false sort of a market where stuff just cannot happen. It's absolutely fascinating to me, man. You'll see a link to the show notes here. Representative Thomas Massie, a representative from Kentucky. Kentucky's got some good reps out there, buddy. I mean, I'm talking Thomas Massie, you have Rand Paul. They're doing it okay. Aside from their governor choice, they're getting a few things right. Continuing on, they go on to say here, there's a food shortage coming to America thanks to coronavirus. Okay, well, where, how? Let's explain a little bit, right? Sadly, it's not because of a lack of food, which is extremely true. It's not because of a lack of food. It's because of an overabundance of regulation and laws that will hamper the ability of food producers, hear that well, food producers to get products to the people and to grocery stores. Now, potatoes are rotting. Right now, potatoes are rotting. Livestock is being slaughtered. Yes, this is true. We know we don't have a food shortage because we have a lack of animals or a lack of actual product or produce, rather. It's because there's so many regulations to get it from the farmer to your table, to get it from the farmer to your grocery store. That middle point in between is where the stall is happening, because there's outbreaks of coronavirus in some of these slaughterhouses that are happening right now. So the farmer can only go through a couple number of slaughterhouses that are restricted by primarily federal regulation. This is what we call a little bit of cronyism or corporate welfare, or the federal government getting involved in which particular slaughterhouses farms can bring their animals to. So these farmers say, I have millions, sometimes hundreds, I don't know, whatever. Collectively, in the aggregate, I have millions of animals that I need to take to get to market, but I can't do that because you guys have shut down your slaughterhouses because a couple people in these slaughterhouses get coronavirus and they have to shut down the entirety of it. Now, granted, to be fair, when I say a couple, I'm talking like 100 or 200 in a single slaughter plant. That's massive. But the problem then lies where we go on to see that it's only because a couple slaughterhouses control the entirety of the market. When it happens in one of these production facilities, the whole market shuts down. Back to the article saying livestock is being slaughtered. Meanwhile, millions of Americans wonder what, if any, food they're going to put on the table tonight. Now, Representative Thomas Massie has a long-standing plan to assist meat producers. He is also calling for similar legislation to assist in getting produce to people. He fears that a food shortage is going to happen if we don't act immediately, and this article indicates that he's probably right. Unfortunately, government will likely only react to when the problem is here rather than preventing it from happening in the first place. Now, again, you'll see in the show notes, I linked to this Twitter thread just so I can read through it clearly here. I won't throw it up on the screen yet. I'll do that in just a second. But here's the thread. This is all come from Representative Thomas Massie. He says, other members of Congress own cattle, but only a few raise cattle. He says, I fix the fences, feed the hay, castrate the bulls, fertilize fields, put tags in their ears, move them between pastures, wean calves. Food shortages are coming, in all caps. USDA needs to acknowledge and respond now. He says the USDA should immediately reevaluate every regulation that affects food production. Then suspend or loosen regulations that slow down the production of food. Congress should act immediately, call a hearing about the problems, and pass legislation to lift regulation. Now, he has a bill right now. It's called the PRIME Act. PRIME, obviously, they love their acronyms up there in D.C. I don't know what it stands for off the top of my head, but it's a bicameral and bipartisan piece of legislation, right? Both houses, and it has Democrat support right now. Actually, a Democrat co-sponsor right now. He says that would be a good first step. And the legislation essentially would make it possible for farmers to use existing infrastructure to provide food directly to consumers in grocery stores. Co-sponsors, like I said before, have already included Democrats in Republicans rather, in the House and the Senate. Now, the alternative basically is to do nothing. While we're staring at bare supermarket shelves, farm animals will be euthanized, and they already are being euthanized right now. That's the second part of this story, which I find almost as fascinating. They're being buried in pits or burned if nothing changes. Crops are already being plowed under. Milk is already being poured out. This is already coming from Representative Thomas Massie. This is what's so fascinating about the way that this marketplace works. All right. You're seeing something similar going on with the oil situation as well, because they have nowhere to store the oil. Oil producers are basically saying, like, I will pay you $40 just to take this off my hands because I need to get it out of the facility, right? Farmers are basically saying, I have so much livestock, so much produce that I can't do anything else with it. And it's going to cost me so much overhead to continually feed the rest of these animals down here. I'm going to have to slaughter 10,000 of these folks. Goodness gracious, 10,000 of these animals right now just to make room for the ones that are coming after this, because that's how my supply chain works. So farmers are literally slaughtering animals, pouring out milk, destroying their produce, because that's how the supply chain has worked. Because once one small piece of this entire mechanism, the whole cog fails after that. He goes on to say, Representative Thomas Massie, that is, I'm only one of 435 congressmen. Call yours right now to get action on this. He says, he then links to an interview he did a few years back explaining, or sorry, not a few years back, but a little while ago, explaining what the prime is. Now, he goes on in here to answer a few other questions that he gets from the audience, and I actually want to answer some of these questions that we see here in just a second. But just to quickly lend some credence to what Representative Thomas Massie is saying, again, you'll see this Bloomberg article linked in the show notes here. Get what Bloomberg is reporting. This was reported as of yesterday. I mean, we're literally less than 24 hours out when they reported this. Here's what they say, okay? They're saying the food supply chain is breaking down. This is coming from John Tyson. Yes, that Tyson, the chairman of Tyson Foods. Going on, the article at Bloomberg indicates that outbreaks are forcing the closure of some of the country's biggest slaughterhouses, where tens of thousands of animals are being processed daily. Tens of thousands of animals are being processed daily. As the plants shutter, producers are left with nowhere to sell their livestock. It's forcing farmers to make gut-wrenching decisions on how to dispose of their animals. The situation is so severe, apparently, that the U.S. government is setting up a center. Get this, y'all. They're setting up a center to partly assist on depopulation and disposal methods. Depopulation and disposal methods. Millions of pounds of meat will just disappear as plants close. This is what Tyson's saying. Meanwhile, plants are facing a labor crunch as employees fall ill, and that's what's shutting everything down. Individuals are coming down with coronavirus. This is spreading to other individuals in those processing plants. The processing plants have to shut down because there's so few processing plants in the entirety of the market space, in my opinion, because government got involved at some point. They just consolidated the entirety of that market. There's only a few processing plants. When one of those fails, the whole entire chain fails. Now, Shime, I've been rambling for a little bit here. Let me end on one thing just to show the audience, because this is the part that I kind of wanted to get to. And this is the part I'm not going into a conspiracy tangent here. I am a little bit. I just can't figure out this part of the entire story. And I saw this last night on the Twitter thread, and I actually checked every single one of these headlines to make sure they were legitimate headlines. I cannot figure this part of it out. I don't know the how or why of what's happening here. I just don't. I'm not going to pretend to make sense of it. I can't figure it out. These are legitimate headlines. I looked these up last night, every single one to a T, to make sure that I wasn't looking at something absurd. But if this is this referencing like them just burning livestock? In the pictures, it doesn't look like it. And the way that they're presenting these headlines, it obviously looks like these are unplanned or unintentional fires. So what do we? 34,000 chickens die in a poultry farm fire in North Carolina. 300,000 hens were killed in the fire in Michigan in an egg farm.
Grant, have you ever been to a chicken farm in your life? Have you?
Not to the size of like something like this.
I just want to let you know, it is gross. It's like the nastiest place you've ever been. I mean, the smell. I used to install solar panels, right? And I installed them at dairy farms, chicken farms. People put them on the roof in order to make their roof make them money. So but I couldn't imagine how bad they smell. Their smell when they're alive is pretty bad. But what if you had nowhere to send them? People have thousands of chickens at these places. I mean, it's so many,
hundreds of thousands, right?
It's like being in the middle of an ant farm or something like that. It's so many chickens. I don't know. It might be more efficient to burn them all than to do what with them if you can't sell them. I mean, they already stink pretty bad, is what I'm saying. I don't know. What I'm saying is I don't know. It could be that, or it could be like, whoa, normally I'm pumping out tens of thousands of these chickens to a processing plant, and that's not happening anymore. What do I do now? I have no idea, but I just wanted to throw that context.
Well,
out
and
there.
here's the reason why I find it so strange, buddy, is every headline that you're looking at right now is from January of this year and onward. I mean, you can see some of the, I don't know if the real news audience can see. I'll just show you here where my mouse is hovering. So obviously the CNN headline here is from January 4th of this year. This headline here from the Omaha World Herald, that's 400,000. And here's the other thing. It's 4 different states, at least as far as I'm calculating: North Carolina, Virginia, Nebraska, and Michigan. Okay. So, and they're all from January of this year going forward. We have January 4th. We have February 17th. We have another one April 21st. And so I was wondering, okay, so does this play into the story that I was checking out just a second ago? Does this play into the story of farmers voluntarily burning their crops, voluntarily burning livestock, which is a grotesque thing to do for all different reasons that you don't have to mention, but whatever? Are they voluntarily slaughtering, and maybe just that's the way that chickens are handled? I don't know. So I looked up one of the headlines, and I'm actually reading from this headline on my other screen over here right now. It's that CNN headline that you're seeing right there in front of you. About 300,000 hens were killed. That headline. It's a local CNN affiliate in Michigan. Here's just the first couple paragraphs. About 300,000 hens were killed in a fire at a poultry farm in southwest Michigan. That's coming from CNN affiliate WWMT reported. They go on to say multiple fire departments responded Friday to a barn fire at this egg farm, a distributor of yada yada, fill in the blanks. The barn was destroyed, and about 50 farm employees were uninjured by the blaze. Bro, to me, going on to say here, Lexa, the fire crews had to bring in water trucks to fight the fire for over several hours. So this is not like a voluntary thing. You don't use that language necessarily, I suppose, if it's something that you did not intend to happen. I don't call the fire department for a controlled burn. You get what I'm saying? I don't think this was meant to be done to control some sense of market value or maybe the population or a depopulation. What I'm implying here, Sean, and this is why it's a conspiracy theory tangent, is I can't make sense of these headlines of why these unintentional chicken farm fires have all started across 4 different states since January. I'm sounding a little bit Alex Jones-esque here, but when Representative Thomas Massie comes to me and says we're having a problem, not just with the production side of the slaughterhouses, it seems like we're also having a problem now with maybe some type of preemptive thing going on with these chicken farms. I don't get it, dude. I'm throwing it out there. Maybe someone on Facebook can help me make sense of this a little bit more than somebody else, but I don't know, man. I stumbled upon this last night and thought, like, what in the world? Just what in the world? I don't know. I don't know what's happening. And I don't even know if there's a connection to be made there or not. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know if there is a connection or not, Grant, but I do know that we don't need to take it for granted that all the food options in their spectrum of options and their abundance of options are going to be, that were available before this crisis, are going to be available afterwards. I mean, I've already been to local fast food restaurants who have a limited menu, who don't have their full menu anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Went to McDonald's and there's only like and I'm just using McDonald's as an example, but they have the Big Mac, the quarter pounder, the double quarter pounder, and like a regular cheeseburger. They don't have like anything else. And I think that's going to be the case in a lot of places. Or if you go to the grocery store, there's your favorite brand might not be there every time you go. And I'm already seeing that happen. I'm already seeing that in restaurants and in grocery stores, and I think there's no reason to believe it won't be accelerating those kind of circumstances where either your options are limited or the supply of what you want, that option is limited. It's why from the beginning of this, I mean, I'm not trying to be a fear monger or scare anybody, or I'm not encouraging anybody to hoard food. But at any given time, I have 3 to 4 weeks of food at my house right now. And I maintain it. When I eat, I basically have a week of fresh food, and then I have 3 weeks of dry food for storage. And then I maintain that fresh food, and every once in a while we buy 2 weeks of fresh food. But I'm encouraging everybody to have at least a couple weeks of food at the house not because I necessarily think we're going to run out, but I think the convenience thing is going to be, it's not going to be as convenient. You may go to the store and you need chicken, and maybe there's not chicken at the store that day. Maybe you got to come on Tuesdays and Thursdays when the delivery truck comes by. And so I'm not trying to be hyperbolic or scare anybody, but we have seen in poor countries, in South Africa, in South America, in the Mediterranean, some of the Mediterranean islands, places, because the economy is not really moving, places that don't produce abundant amounts of food and are bordered by ocean are running out of food, especially these, some of these islands. And as that continues to happen in the poorer places, it will happen in the richer places, just because that kind of domino effect, because you don't just shut off the food supply for 6 billion people worldwide, turn it back on and get everything that you had before. I think it's a lot like businesses. It's just a matter of saying there's going to be a different environment. And what the story that I think you read, Grant, just kind of plays into that and shows you that that's probably true, that we're going to have to deal with some changes. And I don't know, maybe it's a good time to get into producing food. But either way, this is one of those reasons why we have to figure out a way to open the market back up.
Yes,
because people could starve to death.
Exactly, man.
And people are starving to death in some poor countries right now. That is happening. People are worried about that.
That's where Representative Massie took to Twitter to answer a few of these sort of basic questions about going back to that story about his Prime Act to sort of open up, that missing piece of the market, that missing piece of the supply chain that we're about to, that he's predicting we're about to see food shortages, or rather in this particular case, just meat shortages come from. But who knows, food shortages could be around the corner. One of the questions he was asked is, why are food shortages coming? Can you articulate the underlying mechanics that are driving this situation? Thank you. Representative Massie responded shortly by saying, processing plants are shutting down, so there's no way to convert an animal to meat that can be sold in the store. As new animals are born, old animals must leave the farm, or the farmers run out of food and space for the animals. I mean, it's as simple as that. That's what I explained before. It's as simple as, look, the processing plants are shutting down because there's a coronavirus outbreak going on. As they shut down, the farmers have nowhere to take their food. Well, can't they just take it to market? No. They can't just take it to market. The only place the farmers can take it to is a qualified USDA processing plant. So if some, Joe down the street or something has been, quote unquote, processing or butchering meat for his entire life, the farmer can't take anything to him. He can't sell it to people around the corner. He can't do any of that. The only place he can take is to a USDA licensed processor that is at a major facility, and he has to do it for certain quantities at a time. He can't sell just a couple pounds of meat to you for some backyard barbecue you want to have next week if that's what you're doing. He has to sell 300 pounds at a time.
Why not?
That's what I'm saying.
Why not? I mean, I don't know. I mean, we made a big stink 10 years ago about the government getting between the customer and the doctor. Why has the government got get between the customer and the butcher, or the customer and the farmer? I mean, at this point, wouldn't you rather live with the chance of possibly getting salmonella over not having food?
Well,
that's my thing. And I think a lot of people would make that choice.
To hear Massie talk about, actually, that was one of the questions he was asking in the interview that's, again, linked in the show notes. It's at the bottom of his tweet chain where he said, here's an interview I did a while ago. He actually thinks that localizing the slaughtering process will actually make it safer for the consumer. And by that, what he means is in these massive slaughter plants, what you end up getting a lot of times is this commingling of chicken product or your beef product. It doesn't matter. The idea is that one animal's product, if you will, I'm not trying to get too descriptive, you know what I mean? One animal's product will commingle with another animal's product. So if that initial animal had E. coli or something else like that in there, it will infect the entirety of the chain going down because it's in a massive processing plant. The more localized and the smaller you make the process, the butchering process itself, the less chance you have of commingling those meats, because that's just not what you do when you sell it locally. Right. And aside from that, too, it's exactly what you just said. To be able to handle it locally and go out to a local farmer's market or something else like that, to open that chain back up for people that want to buy it somewhere else, man, I don't know. I mean, I think the free market is the response to all of this stuff going on. Right. Again, he says, answering that question in the tweets, he said one of the questions he got was, how do you keep the food safe? Are you saying the current food safety regulations are unnecessary? Representative Massie responds, some are worse than unnecessary. In some situations, some of the regulations contribute to less safe and less healthy food. They make it so that only giant factories can afford the cost of compliance. So small producers are stymied and farmers must ship live animals long distances. So not just the long distances, buddy. Apparently it's that the only places, the only function or the only operating capacity in this space is massive companies with hundreds, if not thousands of employees, where the ability for negligence slips in more than it would for a smaller place, I would think, like that, right? So I don't know, man. It seems like all around.
You know what this reminds me a lot of was when I was younger, our oil capacity. This reminds me of us saying, like, we had plenty of raw oil, but we only had so many refining places. And the gas price, I think it was under Bush. I mean, I was in my early 20s, but I remember the gas price going through the roof because one of the U.S. refineries was having trouble. And we had plenty of oil in the country, but we didn't have enough refineries. This sounds like a similar problem where, you know, there's plenty of animals, but there's not enough processors. And because of government and regulation, they've made that, I don't know, it's if one of those processing plants go down, it takes away too much of our capacity to feed Americans. And it's why it needs to be decentralized, deregulated, not to the point of unsafety, but to the point where they can meet the capacity in the market. And not be taken down this huge percentage of the market just because one person gets sick with COVID or something like that.
Well, and in particular, man, I think the idea is allowing the market to choose where those options are, as opposed to forcing government's strong arm overreach to figure out, to pick and choose which corporations are going to be able to provide that part of the supply chain. Right. I think that's what the biggest aspect is the idea of liability and safety is always going to be there. The idea of liability safety, because people just will not purchase a product from something if it looks like an unsafe environment to purchase that product. And on top of that, too, man, if something comes from an unsafe environment, that business is going to quickly go out of business. Now, the businesses that are kept in business are the ones that the government are saying, like, we're going to incentivize you to stay open to the tunes of tens of $millions on taxpayer dime because we say so, because now they get a market advantage. You know what I'm saying? So I think the best way, and what Massey's basically talking about it here, is opening up to free market principles has usually worked in the past. We see how it's working in the healthcare system right now. We see how the deregulation of telemedicine, the deregulation of certificate of need, the deregulation of not just certificate of need, but the ability for nurse practitioners in particular to expand the scope of their practice. All of these restrictions have been taken off place during this coronavirus outbreak. And the reason for that is because we need the expediency of the market. We need the market to be able to figure out how to most appropriately solve these problems. So if that's the general sense behind this, I think what Massey is basically saying is, like, just like we're doing in healthcare, we need the market to be able to figure out the best way to handle some of these food shortage situations, man. And I don't know, it's just you get conflicting reports on some of this stuff sometimes, man. And again, there's really going to be no way to tell what ends up happening with a lot of this, because I don't know, dude. I don't necessarily. It's difficult, and it's becoming more and more difficult for me to figure out who to trust where, right? And which story to trust. I'm making a hard transition here, Sean, because we're ending the show. But
let me throw one more thing in there before you transition is, this is kind of an emerging story in the United States, and we're covering it a little bit before a lot of other places will cover it. People are covering it. I mean, people are talking about it, but it's a lot of YouTube people and side websites, not your main websites. And a lot of that's because people don't want to be hyperbolic. They don't want to scare people. They don't want to add just one more thing for you to be worried about. But this is a thing, and that's why we're talking about it, is because I showed a video before the coronavirus task force briefing last night of Tim Pool covering some people getting food from a truck in South Africa, just raiding it, just rah. Right. And I told you in Italy there was, and it hasn't been widely reported, but it was a thing where gangs of people were attacking grocery stores and taking food because of not having money. That wasn't not having food. That was not having money. But there are, I think generally you can speak about there are going to be shortages. How could there not? There's just less people producing value and still people consuming the same amount of value, right? Whether that be food or whatever product that may be. Now, I know people are consuming less, but either way, I think it's important to talk about now. There will be more stuff in the future, trust us, and we will be talking about it. And just a little PSA, have more than 2 or 3 days worth of food at your house.
Mm.
I mean, that's me not being hyperbolic. I'm not telling you to hoard food. Just make sure you have more. You can't be one of those New York food shoppers right now. You can't just go get your dinner and only have dinner in the fridge. You got to have, because there will be shortages or just like gaps in the supply where like I said, chicken is there the few days right after the delivery truck, but maybe not 4 days after the delivery truck. And so you just want to make sure you have plenty of food. And I encourage all the people there. Like people made fun of me because I bought that week's worth of storable food. Well, that was just me supplementing what I have available just in case. And I encourage everybody to have a little bit, even if it's 1 week's worth of just in case, because you don't know what's going to happen in the future.
Well, and it's awesome, man. It plays again into all of this stuff. It plays into the idea of it's difficult to figure out where to get reasonable information from, acceptable information, valid information, which one of the reasons obviously why I trust, Thomas Massie is not just because his political ideology, which I tend to agree with the vast majority of the time, but he does the thing for a living. Like that's what he is. Cattle is his life. Okay. He understands the supply chain. He understands the market. He understands how to get from point A to point Z and everything in between. He knows what he's talking about, and he knows, the points in the market that might have some fallibility in it. And this is a little bit of what I'm talking about right here, buddy, of the inability for us to get accurate information and how quickly some of that inaccuracy can spread. All right. Look at this headline from Reason. Now, the original tweet is not necessarily there in the capacity that I want it to be from the WHO, but the WHO had to delete a misleading tweet that was spreading paranoia, they say. I had to delete a misleading tweet that was spreading paranoia. And just so I can read this story here to y'all, I'm going to take that back off the screen. But here's what the story is. Over the weekend, the WHO, and I'm sure a lot of people saw this because we actually, by we, I mean my family, actually had a conversation about this tweet. We do a Sunday night sort of like family gathering on Zoom. It's a cool little thing we do. We love our family. It's, it is what it is, right? But we do this little family gathering on Sunday nights, and we were talking about this exact tweet in that family gathering. And luckily my brother responded back by saying, well, there's some stuff you got to know, but let me set the stage here for what we were even talking about. So this weekend, the WHO had to delete a misleading tweet about the coronavirus. Unfortunately, though, and this is very true, Shine, unfortunately, several media outlets had already cited it. And once those media outlets cite it, we're in a day and age where people just read headlines. It's just the Twitter. It's just headlines. It's probably 200 characters that you get and you're done. It's out there, right? It's created this. The storm is going. You're in the midst of it. The cat's out of the bag, literally, figuratively, whatever. Several media outlets already cited it, spreading unwanted fear about the likelihood of, here it is, secondary COVID-19 infections. If you have it once, you can get it again. We've all heard these stories. Okay, we've all heard these stories about people having coronavirus, getting over it, and testing positive again. Well, the WHO just leaves it there. So on Friday, the WHO published a, quote, scientific brief on immunity passports. This is the idea that governments should grant special documents to citizens who test positive for COVID-19 antibodies. They should grant special documents to citizens who test positive for COVID-19 antibodies. Not testing positive for COVID-19, the antibodies, meaning you've already had it again, allowing them to move about freely. Now, the WHO warned at the time that this is premature because, quote, no study has evaluated whether the presence of antibodies to SARS-CoV-2 confers immunity to subsequent infections by the virus in humans. Now, the WHO is somewhat correct, okay, and technically correct in the sense that no human study has shown this yet, or at least definitive human study has shown that if you have a COVID-19 antibody, you cannot get it again. I will say in the show notes, this is why it's important to have someone like my brother in our family. In the show notes, he did link to a study that's come out right now saying, yeah, but preprint studies using non-human primates, which is about as close as you can get to anything in the scientific world for actual human studies. Studies have shown to non-human primates that it does highly suggest that there is immunity acquired after primary infection and may be protective upon subsequent exposure to the virus. Now, I'll break this all down here in a second, getting back to the WHO tweet. So they're saying that, look, there's no study that's evaluated whether the presence of antibodies means anything legitimate, means that you can't get it again. Okay, fine. But here's the way that the tweet, the original version, actually expressed that belief. And here's where you get to a story where it's not just about COVID anymore. It's about the WHO just being so insanely misleading with their stuff. And because they're so misleading, you have to read into the intentions behind why are you being so misleading, WHO? Here's the tweet. Quote, There is currently no evidence that people who have recovered from COVID-19 and have antibodies are protected from a second infection. That's not the same thing to say that there's no definitive study to indicate that yet. They are basically saying that there is no evidence at all, possibly nor will there ever be, that antibodies, meaning having had coronavirus before, means that you will not get a subsequent infection. That is just, that's not true on its face. They could have come out and said something, I don't know, there's no study to indicate, no definitive study to indicate that is true. But putting it in the negative in this sense implies something very strange, man. Very strange. That's where you get people reading into the WHO, working with Bill Gates and forcing vaccines and all this conversation, bro. It's because the WHO is not being forthright with their original stuff. And at the time that they sent this out, bro, many readers undoubtedly, they would have come away from these statements with a level of anxiety that, oh my gosh, you can get it again. We're doomed. We're doomed, they would say.
It wasn't even the only story, too, because it came from the WHO. It was parroted by a lot of people. It was, I mean, and it's been around for like 2 or 3 weeks where people have thrown things out there like that. And I just wonder where the incentive is to scare people into thinking this will never be over. I mean, where's the incentive? Because that's basically what the story says, right? When you're saying if you don't become immune after you get it, the implication there is, well, I hope you're enjoying life right now because it's never going to be over.
Right.
And who has the incentive to do such a thing?
Or at least they're saying it's never going to be over until we tell you it's over.
Well, I guess.
And that's what's frustrating about it.
But who has that incentive, Grant? Who has the incentive to say this will never be over? I mean, I guess vaccine producers would have that incentive, but even they have the incentive to say that we can fix it with our vaccines. That there's incentive there. I don't know who would have such incentive, but to me, it would take that kind of incentive to say such a thing because of what you just laid out there. Because they could have done something a different way that would have obviously made people less frightened.
And let me break this down here too. And this is again why part of the real news the real news audience is the best. We say best audience in the nation, appreciation segment. So I really do believe is the best audience in the nation. The amount of information and the quality of information, the caliber of information that you all bring to us when we're off air, off doing this podcast is just absolutely incredible. My brother actually sent us one of these scientific studies. The short version is what I read a second ago. That preprint studies using non-human primates suggest that immunity acquired after infection may actually be protective. Here's some of the breakdown of the scientific language, and I think it's important just to get through this one paragraph so people can break it down later to show that, like, no, hold on. The WHO is saying one thing, but there are studies out there indicating that it may actually be the opposite of what the WHO is saying. Here's the language coming from that study. It's linked at the very bottom of the show notes if you want to check it out for yourself today. Again, I would implore people to check the Evernote link. It's the easiest way to read through these show notes. This study says, after symptoms were alleviated, coronavirus COVID-19 symptoms, after symptoms were alleviated and the specific antibody tested positively, the half of infected monkeys were re-challenged. I suppose that means put back into the same situation where they had coronavirus again. The half of infected monkeys were re-challenged with the same dose of SARS-CoV-2 strain. You get what I'm saying? They lost the symptoms, and then half of them were reinfected again. Notably, neither viral loads, and I'm in these swabs because these language I can't pronounce. Neither viral loads in these swabs timeline nor viral replication in all primary tissue compartments at 5 days post reinfection was found in re-exposed monkeys. Now, breaking this down, they go on to say, combined with follow-up virological, radiological, and pathological findings, the monkeys with re-exposure showed no reoccurrence. You know what I'm saying? The monkeys with re-exposure showed no reoccurrence of COVID-19, similarly to the infected monkeys without re-challenge. Finally, they go on to say, by taking together, our results indicate that the primary SARS-CoV-2 infection could protect from subsequent exposures, which have the reference of prognosis of the disease and the vital implications for vaccine design. Now, again, this is what I'm saying, buddy, is WHO is saying one thing, that there's no way to solve this. It's going to be around forever. It's freaking people out. It's not just a problem with scientific data and evidence. It's not just a problem with being misleading the way that you're presenting that. It's a media style problem too. It's a media style problem of everyone, all of our American media outlets still just, I don't know, dude. the reliance upon the WHO still just baffles me. I do not know at this point what they have done at all for anybody to show that they are reliable in the information that they've been giving. And it's not just the China stuff, dude. It's not just like missing it from the very beginning. It's every single step along the way, buddy. Every single time they have an opportunity to do something right, to get information correct, to properly present the narrative to the American people or to the world for that matter. Dude, this is serious stuff, buddy. This isn't just like skewing the statistics so that someone can win an election. This isn't even just like an economic thing so the WHO doesn't lose some high dollar funding, or so that Trump is ingratiated to their cause anymore so we stop giving $200 million. Bro, these are people's lives, man. This is serious information here. I mean, I don't want to go too crazy into the fear-mongering stuff, buddy, but we already know there's a mental health situation problem at least going on in Knox County for sure. And if you tell people that there's no way to get over this, I'm assuming that at least for a small portion of them, that's going to add a little bit to their anxiety. This is an anxiety-driven problem too. You get what I'm saying, Shine? It's not just like refuse to pay attention to some of the scientific experts saying that, hold on, pump your brakes for a second, WHO. We might have some evidence to say otherwise before you start, throwing around this ridiculous tweet, man, this salacious tweet in nature. Stop that for a second. There are real implications to what you're about to say. And the fact of the matter is, you used to be the world standard for all of this information, at least in the perception of it, maybe not actually, but at least the way people perceived your organization. You used to be the standard, bar none. Pull out all the stops. That's where people would go to. Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, hundreds of millions of dollars per year, all that stuff, okay? And not only have you tarnished that now, but you're actually exploiting that reputation that you had in the past to kind of push whatever you want to currently. And not just the American people. Media outlets are taking you at your word. And when the media outlets take you at your word, it only further perpetuates that entire cycle. The WHO said it, now New York Times said it, now my local affiliate said it, and that's at least 3 valuable sources of information right now, all corroborating the exact same thing that the other one said previous to it. So it's got to be true. It's got to be true. Meanwhile, it was just a simple semantic thing from the beginning that they put it in the negative as opposed to putting it in the positive, and now we're all confused with what's going on, buddy. You get what I'm saying, man? I'll kick it to you.
Well, I mean, this is why Americans have been distrusting international institutions for over 2 decades. I mean, it's been a meme since you and I were in high school about the UN kind of being worthless and not worth the money, and maybe we should get out of it. I mean, Donald Trump got elected on reworking NATO, reworking NAFTA, all these I mean, there's been complaints about the International Import-Export Bank. The World Bank constantly gets bad headlines about taking advantage of countries. A lot of these institutions that have been infiltrated by dictatorships and the Communist Chinese Party it's gone from like just it being a negative thing that those countries were a part of them to these actual institutions are not working very well. I mean, I don't know. I saw Steve Bannon talking about the head of the WHO. I believe he's from Ethiopia. Which is a country, and if I'm wrong on any of these details, I really sincerely apologize. But I only say that because I don't have it up in front of me. But I'm pretty sure I'm correct. Head of the WHO is from Ethiopia, which is getting a lot of money from the Belt and Road Initiative, which is the Communist Chinese Party's initiative to have a land road from China to Europe in order to have trade there. And there was an implication from Steve Bannon that there's financial incentive for this WHO director, if he's involved in Ethiopian politics at all, to not talk about China because Ethiopia is using a lot of that Belt and Road Initiative money. And you say this initiative thing like it's a small deal. This is like China's New Deal. I mean, this is like China spending a lot of money to move its goods not on the ocean because they don't like moving goods on the ocean because the United States controls the ocean. They want to move it on roads. But I don't know. I think it's glaring that the United States is too good for these international institutions, and we only became a part of them and try to encourage the world to become more like us. But what has happened is we have become more like the rest of the world was. And I'm not necessarily, and I've said it before, I'm trying to recover from this protectionist kind of vibe that I have for the United States right now, but it's hard to when you hear stories like this. It's hard not to say, why does the United States pay attention to something called the World Health Organization? Why do we even pay attention to it? And why wouldn't we just assume that they're idiots? If it's not the United States health whatever, then why would we assume that they know what they're talking about? Why would we not assume they're corrupt or incompetent? And I know that that's not and what sucks is like you can't talk about that without it seeming like you don't like people. Like I don't hate anybody. I just need institutions to work. And if institutions can't work when we take United States institutions and try to make them international institutions, then let's not do that anymore. Let's just create really great United States institutions and encourage other countries to copy and imitate that greatness. And I don't know. I could have spent that whole rant talking about the Chinese Communist Party and how they've infiltrated all these international organizations, but I think that's a waste of time now. I think that's just obvious. That's what they do. And then these institutions become as worthless as the institution that gave you Chernobyl and the institution that gave you the Wuhan virus. It's just a nasty communist, poorly run, non-truthful institution, and not like it will be an institution run by angels if it's run by the United States. But at least I, as a taxpayer, can act like I have a say in how that institution is run. And I can give them feedback and whatever. At least it's the United States. And that makes me feel... And I don't know what you want to take with that rant, Grant, but I'm just kind of tired of these international institutions. At this point, it's not even about... I'm tired of us relying on them. It's not even about having them anymore.
Right.
It's like, why do we assume these things work? They just don't work very well and haven't worked very well over the past couple decades. And every time they're put to the test, they fail.
Well, it's exactly what you're saying, where if something is far enough away, there's a sense that it can never be held accountable. I think that's a lot of the reason why people have such low approval ratings of their DC politicians. I mean, look, okay, so people want to say that Trump has terrible approval ratings. Have y'all ever considered or looked at, say, Nancy Pelosi's approval ratings or Dianne Feinstein's, but especially Nancy Pelosi's approval ratings with Trump's? Yeah, it's single digits usually, right? And I think the best I've ever seen Pelosi's in the 20s or 30s. Trump's, I mean, if you're saying like, mid 40s is low for approval rating for a president, look at these congressmen, bro. It's a little bit of what Shine's talking about, where it's because they feel so separated, so distanced, that they have no way to actually empathize with what's actually happening in the country. And I use that word importantly. They may be able to sympathize, like I can understand your plight, but there's no way that you're not walking through it. You're not living it, man. And because you're so far away, like I can't hold you accountable to those decisions. And because I can't hold you accountable for those decisions, I have no way to know if what you're telling me is true or not. I have no way to know of how to properly parse some of this information that's coming across my plate. And that ability to properly synthesize information in this culture is quickly losing. We're quickly using that ability. You've actually can see these studies with Eastern culture compared to Western culture, in particular South Korea compared to America, or even China compared to America to some extent. Eastern culture's ability to immediately discover what is opinion in journalism as opposed to objective fact in journalism is overwhelming. I mean, Americans don't do it well. Like, for some reason, the way we've been programmed, maybe some predictive programming or gaslighting going into this, I don't know.
It's the ad-driven model. It's confused us. It's the ad-driven model.
It is, dude.
It's instead of the subscription model. That's what's confused us.
Yeah. We can't figure out what's true and what's not. We can't figure out what's an opinion and that's part of the reason why I like to push the show notes so much, man, because what I think I'm somewhat decent at is reading through these articles and be like, that's biased, that's opinion. Oh, there's a cool fact. That's biased. There's opinion. There's a fact. And I basically just grab facts from all these headlines that I'm linking and just throw them in there. Now, occasionally I'll throw some opinion in there because opinions are fun occasionally, but if it's 50-50 opinion fact, well then, dude, I don't know, is there anything such thing as reporting?
Well, then we're wasting our time, right? Because you and I have opinions. Right. We already have opinions on stuff. What we need is facts. And and Grant, this was a great way to kind of round out the show talking about these international institutions. I don't think anybody has any faith in them anyway.
No.
Just because of what happened in the last election. But it's good to add to that. Not because we're just trying to shoot down these institutions, but it's so like people can make better ones and improve the ones we got. We want accurate reporting. We want non-financial incentivized information. We don't want information from a quasi-government institution that's really an ad for a company, because that's what this WHO thing feels like. It feels like an ad for for what do you call it, a vaccine company or something like that, or an ad for government to save you. And everybody's tired of that. We just need to like get back to work and figure out how to do things safely. But I do want to warn people, like Narrative Watch. I don't know if we can have a portion of the show called Narrative Watch. This reopening things back up narrative is already losing.
Yeah.
They've pointed the weapons at it. You can see on the scroll here, this scroll down at the bottom is from Fox News. And I just saw
it really?
Yeah, it's from Fox News. And I just saw an article on there that said, North Carolina reopen up rally to continue even though the leader is confirmed to have coronavirus. That article was written by somebody that doesn't want things to open up. The narrative needs to be, instead of you're holding me back, you're taking away my freedoms, even though that's all true. It needs to be we want to open up, and we want to open up safely.
Yes, dude.
We want to open up safely, and that's not necessarily for any other reason to take away the ammo from the people who want us to be dependent on government, who want us to receive checks from the government, who want food to be produced by the government, who want to remake our system into some kind of thing that looks like communist China, and the way they handled this and the way they handle everything. There are people in this country who want it to look like that, and they're pointing their guns at the open up people. So the narrative on this show from here on out is going to be open up safely. That's why we're going to have these business owners on to encourage people to spend their money, spend it safely, make people feel good about the purchase so they don't hold on to that money because they're scared. We don't want people to be scared. And this WHO thing is just it's a Rosetta Stone because it makes you, A, think it's never going to be over. It, B, makes you think even when it is over, you're still not safe. All these things are to restrict economic activity, and it's so funny we keep calling it economic activity because it's really human activity, transferring value from one person to another. That's what they're trying to eliminate, and you can go, and I can prove that by saying they're not letting you go to church. They're not letting you do these things that enrich your human spirit, including trading value between each other. And we have to watch out for those things. So maybe we'll have a new segment on the show called Narrative Watch. But the narrative of, if I were you out there in the world, stop pushing they're trying to take my rights away thing about the open up. Push we need to transfer value between people. We need to do it safely. We need to be responsible. We need to be unafraid and face the challenge. That needs to be the way it works, because that takes away the ammo from those who would remake this nation into something you wouldn't recognize.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And to, like Sean's saying, take that narrative back, because it is all about doing it safely. Okay. And it's also about combating that narrative that they're talking, another 12 months, another 18 months. So in Nashville, buddy, they're saying it's going to be another 18 months until you see Broadway. Is it Broadway, Gobs? It's Broadway, right? Gabi is my wife sitting beside me. That Broadway is the mainstream. I'm pretty sure that's goodness, I live in Nashville. I should know this. But
just call it the Strip.
The Strip. Thanks, buddy.
That's what everybody calls it in every town. It's the Nashville Strip.
I'm a true Nashville.
I think it's 14th Street.
Yeah.
Either way, no matter what the colloquial term is.
But they're saying it's going to be another 18 months until you see the Strip here in Nashville open up in the sense that
there ain't going to be no Strip in 14 months. There ain't going to be any bartenders.
I know.
I mean, all the bartenders are going to be working in the woods in an underground speakeasy somewhere. I mean, that's what I'm saying too, is like, do these people not understand the moment people don't think that it's dangerous, they're going to spend their money somehow, whether it's legal with the government or not.
And I'll end the show probably with this little thing here that I wanted to share for a minute, talking about taking the narrative back, talking about, we brought this up yesterday, man, of President Trump, possibly considering the idea of not doing these coronavirus updates anymore. He did one yesterday, and the very first question that was asked, this plays into what I was talking about a second ago with understanding WHO narrative and understanding where information comes from and how easy it is. Eric said on Facebook, it is Broadway. Awesome. Thank you. How easy it is, by the way, just to look up some of the stuff for yourself. So the very first question Trump was asked yesterday during that coronavirus update was something to the effect of, by the way, one of your staff members that you put on this team, he was talking about in February how this shouldn't be taken seriously and it's not a big deal and it's not a problem. Yeah, we're going to shut down travel from China, but aside from that, it's not a problem. And Trump's response was, why are you making this partisan? Like, I just don't get it. Because you realize, like, everybody else made the same mistakes here, okay? Like, you realize everyone on the Democrat side, Nancy Pelosi was out there saying the exact same thing, walking through Chinatown on February 24th, saying literally the same thing. And I think the point that Trump was making is nothing good is going to come from trying to score partisan political points right now. There might be something good that comes from, I don't know, bringing this up as a decent period of subject matter, of talking about it a little bit, of drawing attention to everybody got this wrong, the WHO included. But here's what Trump was referencing, by the way. If you want to know, it's pretty easy to look up when he says, by the way, Nancy Pelosi was doing the same thing. It's not necessarily whataboutism. It redirects to what Sean is talking about. It redirects to the narrative that's important. The narrative that's important right now is not that a single guy on Trump's side or just Nancy Pelosi by herself got this wrong. The narrative is probably like, bro, almost everyone got this wrong. And why did they get that wrong? That's what should be focused on, not whether there was a D or R in front of their name. Listen to Nancy Pelosi, February 24th. Listen to this.
People to come out again and not be afraid.
Also to say to everyone, you should come to Chinatown. Precautions have been taken by our city. We know that there's a concern about tourism traveling all throughout the world, but we think it's very safe to be in Chinatown and hope that others will come.
All right, so Nancy Pelosi, obviously in San Francisco, you see Nancy Pelosi easing outbreak concerns. This is not to knock Nancy Pelosi. This is just to lend credence to what Trump was saying yesterday and to lend some credence to what Shine was saying just a second ago. Bro, first of all, you can look this information up pretty easily. Secondly, dude, I am getting so insanely tired right now of constantly harping on the same thing of like, can we get past? There'll be plenty of time to play Monday morning quarterback. We're about to try and reopen here. We're about to try and reopen safely. Can it at least just figure that side of it out first before we start figuring out who to blame for what happened in the past? And if you're going to be honest about who to blame, at least be fair. At least be consistent across the board with your blame. Do you get what I'm saying, buddy? Anyways, I'll give you some.
Well, hey, you know, if Trump didn't have the media there with those particular media and didn't have the question asked by that particular person, let me give you the most honest answer, because I thought that was a really good question too. But the most honest answer is, yeah, that guy has not done the best job and will probably be fired. He put a dog breeder in charge of the coronavirus in the very beginning. The guy they asked, what's his name, Azar? The guy
Azar, I think.
Azar. Yeah. So like Azar will be fired.
Yeah.
So he did not do as good as he could have done and probably won't last. And that's probably why Mike Pence got put out front immediately. And we haven't seen Azar. We've seen Fauci. We've seen Birx. Birx got brought in from an ambassadorship, mostly because Azar wasn't doing a great job. But on the other hand, nobody else was either.
Right.
And and he said to the other party was telling people to go out and be out with people for Chinese New Year. They were doing it in New York and they were doing it in San Francisco. But that's what the problem with this partisan landscape is. You can't have honest answers, because an honest answer would have been, yeah, he didn't do the best job. We're going to look at his performance, but at the same time look at everybody else. Everybody else was not taking this as seriously as they could have, and we're definitely giving people unsafe, bad information. So that's all I'll say about that, is like, he should have been able to give an honest answer, but because of the situation we're in, he had to be partisan about it. But this partisan stuff's going to kill us. It might literally kill us.
And by the way, I think we're probably going to end the show. We're about 23 minutes over where we're supposed to be. By the way, Shine did throw that Zoom meeting out there, the sort of little digital hangout session. Let me make one quick plug for that. We might do this a little bit further down in the week as well. If you want to hang out with us after this show, Shine and I usually just kind of like stick around for a little while. Just, whatever. We talk shop. We'll brainstorm about future segments. We'll brainstorm about future events or future guests we can have on, or future topics we can talk about, or just, I don't know, catch up and live life with each other. Who knows? Sometimes we just talk about video games, whatever, right? If you want to join in that conversation, I think that's one of the ways we're going to try and start building this community is after the show, I'll put a link out. I don't know, we may not do it every day. We'll do it on occasion. If you want to join, just hit that link in the chat there.
Yeah, I just put it out there, so you should be able to see that on all platforms, by the way, if you're watching on YouTube, Twitch, or Facebook. And coming soon, there's going to be a website for Real News Radio coming soon.
We need to get some merch behind us, man.
No, we're going to get the merch.
How many people out there? I just want to take a quick poll of whoever's left listening. Text us later on, text us, message us later on or something. How many people would wear a big old red hat and white lettering that just said Real News on the front of it?
Man, or I'd love to sell coffee cups. This is from Bass Pro Shops, but like something with the Gadsden flag, I think that's public domain. You could probably get a little Gadsden flag coffee cup, or would you like a Real News coffee cup? Anything like that. Anything like that. We'd obviously do it for cost. We wouldn't do it to make money.
I just want to spread the Real News name. Yeah. Anyways, man, we'll end the show today. Hit that link in the comments right there if you want to join us for this chat session afterwards. Yeah, man, I guess that's it. We'll be back tomorrow doing it big. My name is Mr. Henry David Shine Thompson, sitting over there beside me. We will see you tomorrow for another fantastic program. Peace.